Alright, so now I'm going to write our first saga. So yeah, this is it, Redux Saga. So we'll create a new folder under our Redux folder called Sagas. And then inside here, we'll create a new folder called, we'll call it index for now. Index, oh, not a new folder, my bad. We'll create a new file, index.js. Okay. So inside index.js, we will create a new function Now in Redux Saga, it uses the generator from ES6. So a generator is basically a function that generates values and then it can be iterated over step by step as and when you want. So we'll create a new function here and we'll call it, so we're going to want to listen for an action. So we'll call it search users watcher. And inside search users watcher, we're going to want to yield take every and we've got our constants here. Inside our constants we've got search bar text change. So we'll yield take, so what we'll do is we'll import search bar text change from constants, and then we'll take every search bar text changed and we'll run get user suggestions. Okay, and also what we have to do is import take every from Redux Saga FX. Okay, so what's going on here is we've got a watcher, and this watcher is going to run, and every time the action search bar text changed gets dispatched, this function is going to run get user suggestions. Okay, so we'll create get user suggestions, which will be function. It's a generator function, get user suggestions, and it will receive the action. So inside here, what we are going to want to do is step 1, we'll send a request to GitHub to search users. Step 2, we will add the users to the state. And what we'll do is we'll dispatch user suggestions received with users. Okay, great. So now we're going to want to create a I'll tell you what, we'll use Axios. So what we're going to do is we'll do yarn add Axios. I will unpause this when that installs. Okay, so Axios is now installed. So we're going to import Axios from Axios. And Axios is basically a promise-based HTTP client. And what it can do is it can fire off HTTP requests and fetch the results. So we've got Axios there. We'll move that to the top, just because it looks nicer. Okay, so we're going to want to import call as well from Redux Saga effects. And what we're going to do is we're going to get response. We have a response, and that will equal call. And we're going to we're going to yield a call to what we will do is we'll build up we will, sorry, my bad. Okay, so we'll yield a call to Axios get. It's the method we want to use. And okay, so we're going to yield a call to Axios get, and then we're going to pass it the arguments. The arguments will be, we're going to interact with the GitHub API, so the arguments will be, we're going to search for a list of users, so we'll users queue. So what we do is we'll pass the query will be action payload. Okay, so we're going to fire off a GET request to the GitHub API, searching for users with the username to start with whatever we type in here. Okay, so that's great. So we'll send a request to GitHub to search users, and then we'll console log the response to see what we're getting. Open the console. Oh, alright, so let's see what this looks like. One line. Okay, that works. So we're going to send off the call and we'll console log response every time this runs. So we've got our two sagas there, and what we're going to want to do also is we're going to want to create a root saga. And the root saga is basically going to be the parent to all of our sagas, and this saga is going to be responsible for initializing all of our sagas. So we're going to create a new function which will export it as the default function. It's a generator function called the root saga, and we're going to also import all from Redux Saga effects. And what we're going to do here is we're going to want to yield all, and we're going to go search users watcher. Okay, so it's going to run the search users watcher, which is going to watch for the search bar text change action, and when that action is called, it's going to call get user suggestions. Okay, so we'll save that, and then in our index.js file, what we're going to want to do is we're going to want to import root saga from Redux sagas, and then after we've created the Saga middleware, we apply the middleware, create the store. We're going to want to go Saga middleware run root saga. We'll save that. It's compiling, reloading. Okay, so now if we type in here S, there we go, there's our result returned. Data, items, 30 items. Okay, excellent. So to recap, what we're doing here is we've got our sagas here. We've got a watcher, which is going to watch for a certain action being dispatched. In this case, it's the search bar text change action is being dispatched. When the action is dispatched, this will call get user suggestions. Get user suggestions is here. It received the action. That's going to yield a call, and call is basically it runs a function that returns a promise. So we're calling Axios get, which returns a promise to this URL, and basically what this yield is doing is you're going to yield this to the middleware, and the middleware is going to execute it, and once it's done, this will then move on to the next operation. So yeah, this is a watcher, this is a worker. They generally come in watchers and workers. So once that is done, we will also import put from Redux Saga effects, and what put does is it allows us to dispatch actions. So once we receive the response, we're going to want to yield a call to put, and we'll create a new constant called user suggestions received. We'll put that in the constants file. Export const user suggestions received equals user suggestions received. Save that. User suggestions received. So we'll dispatch user suggestions received, and we will pass it. Let's just see what we're receiving from GitHub. action is undefined. Okay, let's just, we're not console logging anymore. So if we comment that out, console log response, save that. Okay, so what are we getting? Data, items. Okay, so cool. So send a request to GitHub to search users, and then we're going to yield, which is going to dispatch an action, user suggestions received. Okay, so what this actually takes is a object, and the type is the type of action we're going to dispatch, and that will be user suggestions received. And then we will pass it suggestions as response data items. Okay, fantastic. We'll save that. And now, so we've dispatched the action user suggestion. Oh, we'll update that to user suggestions. My bad. Okay, so we update that. Now what we need to do is we need to handle this action. So we're going to do that in our reducers. So in our reducers initial state, we'll have user suggestions, and we'll make an array, and then we need to update this so it's a constant. And then we will handle the case of user suggestions received. And what we do is return an object dot sign object state user suggestions, and that will equal action dot payload suggestions. So what we'll do here is we'll console log the action, just to check that we're getting the right action, and then we'll do that. Actions is not defined in reducers index.js. Action. So here is our payload suggestions there. We're also getting an error. Suggestions are undefined. So so what we'll do is in our sagas we'll just add it like response data items. we'll add the payload as response data items, and then we will just update the user suggestions as the action payload. We'll save that, and then in search bar text, every re-render, we will just console log this props state suggestions is suggestions user suggestions, console log that. So it's currently empty, and we fire off an A, and yeah, there we go. Cool. So what we'll do is we will this props state user suggestions, we'll map over that suggestion, and we will return, we'll add that to an old list, we'll grab the index from the map as well, and we'll return an li element with the key as the index. Close that off, semicolon. We will pass it the suggestion login, suggestion.login. Save that. And then as we type, let's type my name. So there we go, there's our suggestions. There I am, it's my GitHub. If you want to check me out. Okay, so it seems that we're getting a 403 forbidden for some reason, probably because of API rate limit exceeded. So we exceeded our API rate, but there we go, that's working. So yeah, so let's recap. So we've got our search bar here. Every time the search bar changes, we call our update search bar text function, which is a Redux action. We make this action. We get this action by mapping the dispatch to props. We bind action creators, update search bar text. So yeah, we fire this function whenever the search bar changes. This function is an action. Here we return the type search bar text changed. Payload is the text that got updated. Okay, so that's just normal Redux that is firing off dispatching actions. And then what's new, Redux Saga, is in our sagas we've got a search users watcher and a get user suggestions. So the search users watcher is going to take every request is going to take every action that is dispatched with this name, so search bar text change. Every time that's dispatched, this search user watcher is going to call the get user suggestions function, which is here, and this function is going to make a call to the GitHub API, put the response in a variable, and then it's going to dispatch user suggestions received with the response as the payload. And then in our reducers, we listen for user suggestions received, and then on suggestions received, we just populate the state, which has the empty array as the initial state, user suggestions. Also here we have the root saga, which basically initializes all the sagas. We only initialize the watcher because that does not need to be initialized. The get user suggestions, we just initialize the watcher with all. If we had more watchers, we would initialize them in here, another watcher, and more and more and more. So that is Redux Saga. There. And there we go. On the next episode, we will get an API key so we're not throttled anymore, and we will also throttle our requests to the GitHub API so we don't fire off as many requests because we're firing off far too many. So yeah, that's an introduction to Redux Saga, and yeah, hope to see you on the next one.